About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free about.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tea Time with RK. Today, my guest is none other than Michael Stephen, best-selling author of numerous books, but one of my most favorite is Financial Freedom Through Real Estate. And so today, we're going to have a conversation about getting to know Michael a little bit more and what led him on his journey to become not only a real estate tycoon, but also an author. So thank you so much for joining today, Michael.
Thank you, RK, for having me on your show.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure. And so for anyone watching, Michael just offered a very special prize and gift for the audience. So if you have questions, if you would like to ask something specific to Michael, please sound off either on YouTube or Facebook in the chat. And he is going to do a drawing at the end of the week for a lucky viewer to win a signed copy of one of his books, which will be amazing. You can send one my way at the same time.
My pleasure. I'll send you the whole series.
So, Michael, the first thing I want to ask you and get to know you a little bit is you have extensive experience working in the mortgage industry. So you have that firsthand knowledge. You also have worked within real estate, buying and selling different deals, working with different partners, and now you're also an author of a series of books that are extremely tactical and functional and helpful for people. I'd like to understand a little bit more about you. Where did this start? Where did your love for real estate start?
I've always loved real estate. For the longest time, I can remember I was always a businessman. I never, even going through elementary school and then high school, my goal was to get into business. I didn't know what kind of business. I just wanted to get into business. So I studied, commerce because I wanted to become an accountant, not because I wanted to do people's paperwork, but to become an accountant for my own business. I believe it's important for any type of business. You got to know your numbers, right? Especially if you want to be successful, it's important. So, before getting involved in financing and mortgages and all that stuff, I actually bought properties, and I remember I had bought a condo, and I started flipping. That's the way I started into this world of real estate. I flipped a few condos, then I realized that this is not really passive income. This is short term. You can make quick cash, but on the long run, this cash could disappear if you're not careful. So then I started getting into properties where I rented it out, and I had other people pay my property while I sit back and manage it. So a friend of mine goes. A real estate friend of mine goes, Carm, we need Carm is my nickname there, but Michael, we need good mortgage specialists. Maybe it's something that you would enjoy doing because it's uh, you kind of studied it, you understand it, you understand the real estate world, you know. So you know, looked into it, and I've been doing mortgages for the longest time. So I and that's what led me to writing, because I've helped so many people in the past few years that I go, you know, I want to put it on paper, and that's what encouraged me to write. And 6 books later, this is where I am. You know, seventh one will be ready shortly, and it will be published probably by the end of June.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So I want to go a little bit deeper. And I know one of the questions that's set on my heart is I'm curious. I feel like sometimes with real estate and wanting to learn about it and kind of even play in that world, that there is some legacy type piece in there too. Was real estate a big part of your upbringing? Was that something that was an important part of your childhood? Where did it come from?
No, my parents came from Italy, and they came with nothing, literally nothing. So I'm grateful that uh, you know, they put me through school, they gave me a roof, and they fed me. You know, that's the way that ball started. And for me, you know, I started the ball on my end, and I started building, and I'm teaching my 3 boys about this. Hopefully, they, you know, could build on top of what I already started building, and and you know, and build an empire. You know, I see a lot of kids take down empires that have been built by parents. So I started at an early age, making them run around, go collect the rents, you know, go do little things, just to get their feet wet. You got to start, you know, when they're young, and make them understand, bring them with you. You know, I love, you know, demolition. I love renovation myself. I've tackled a couple of my own projects, and I bring them on the job site, you know, so they understand, uh, you know, how plumbing works, how electrical works, you know, the little details. And but no, I was not, I wasn't born into this. I started from scratch myself, and you know, I wish I had somebody like me teach me when I was a little pipsqueak, because I would have started this a long time ago. And that's why I encourage people to start early, especially kids that are still at home living with their parents. You know, get yourself a little part-time job, put some money aside, invest in that property, because as you get older, you know, you got, you know, obligations, you got a spouse, you get kids, you get, you know, it just gets harder and harder and harder, right? So as you start earlier, it's easier, I find.
Fantastic. I think it's amazing that you're having your
Yeah.
boys actually on the job sites with you, like going through the plumbing, hitting down the walls. But great
Yeah.
things to learn and know, like great knowledge to have, but also
Yeah.
understand the business side of things and how to run the business and continue. There was such a great conversation by John Dio, who I spoke to just a couple months ago. And in that conversation, he talked about the fact that generational wealth typically doesn't last beyond 3 generations. And it's such a buzz word, right? Like it's such a
Yeah.
buzz phrase that, you know, uh, we want to be able to live generational wealth for our children. But if people don't do what you're doing, which is actually teaching the kids and having them be a part of it, almost like having them see the struggle,
Mhm.
those kids, whether they're deeply ingrained or not, typically do okay. But it's like the generation after that doesn't. They really struggle.
Exactly. If they're born into it and they start from an early age, they figure this is what it is. This is the what's normal, right? And they'll pick up faster. It's like trying to teach an old dog a new tricks. It's not going to work. And I've got a lot of friends that you know, have had successful businesses, and the kids wanted to know nothing about it, so they put them for sale. It's probably because they start at an early, you know, a later age, and a later age where they, you know, they had more. Uh, you know, their likes and dislikes were different, and it wasn't for them. So bring them at an early age. Everybody should bring their kids to the office, and teach them.
I agree. I
Uh,
wholeheartedly agree. Let me ask you this. You started off with condos. Talk to us about
Mhm.
your first deal. What inspired you to get started with that first one?
Again, a real estate friend of the family. Uh, I ran into him and he goes, "Hey, Carm, I've got a condo. Uh, are you, you know, interested?" And for me, this is, I said, "I'm not sure." I go, "Let me uh, let me look into it." And as a matter of fact, I had spoken to my brother, and we decided to go ahead with it. We picked up the first one as a team, my brother and I, because he's a handyman as well. And when you want to take on a project like this and you want to save money, if you can do half the work, it's money that you put in your pocket. So we basically did the whole thing ourselves, everything A to Z. And we didn't make much. It was like $20,000, but you know what? It was still money. $20,000, and it took us what, 2 months then, I think. And we said, wow, like this is fun. Imagine doing a few of these every year. So obviously we started getting picky as we got older, and now if I don't make 100,000 on a deal, I'm not interested. So I got very picky.
Apparently.
Yeah, yeah,
So I want to, one of the things that is also on my mind, now that we've gotten the chance to kind of get to know you a little bit, understand your story, and know where this passion originated from, I want to ask you about some of the aspects of your book. And your flagship book is How to Find Financial Freedom with Real Estate. And I will say, I really enjoyed the book. I actually re-listened to it today before our interview because it's like a step-by-step guide on every aspect that you need to know to purchase residential real estate. Like every piece of it.
that was the purpose, and that was the book. It's 7 chapters. It's for a reason. I find that I've read many books where half of it is all fluff. It's just it repeats itself, and the book is thick for no reason. My book gets straight to the point. Chapter 1 to 6 teaches, especially the beginners, step by step on why you're getting into real estate. You just in any business, you don't start you don't open up a restaurant not knowing what you're getting into, right? You're going to start a restaurant as a busboy, as a waiter, and you're going to learn, and then you get a feel, if you want to, of what this business is about. Same thing with real estate. So chapter 1 to 6 might be boring to connoisseurs of real estate, but for somebody who's starting off, this is perfect. It'll give you a foundation. Then chapter 7, I teach the secret of how you can invest with very little money. 10, 15, $20,000. You can turn it into millions, and it's not complicated. And I've put it to the test. And it works. It works. There's almost no room for failure if you put chapter 7 into practice.
Fantastic. I want to ask you this because I was recently reading an article on gentrification in neighborhoods around the world. And in particular, the article was referencing a town in Japan where they're selling houses for 300 US, 500 US, sometimes giving the houses away. And in Italy, I'm sure many people in our audience have seen the homes that are going for, a dollar, and then you are supposed to, re-renovate the house and live there and create income in the environment. My
Yeah.
question here is, one of the big things that you talk about within your book is, of course, how important location is. And the steps you should take to identify a good place to purchase a home and to almost avoid that gentrification of a neighborhood. And I would say that that is so important. And someone in our audience has seen it too, which is awesome. We have a couple questions. And I would say that that's so important. But how do you avoid that? What are some steps that you can take to navigate that and ensure that that doesn't happen where you're looking to buy? And then I guess we can take it a step further. Is that is that an investment that you would consider?
I've considered buying a piece of, property in Italy. Of course, the roots of my ancestors are from there. So, and I've got friends that are thinking of going to Sicily and picking up properties for a dollar. They do exist, but the, the cities, the municipalities, they're doing this because they need to generate revenues. So by giving the land or the property for a dollar and you build, you renovate, actually it comes with a whole list of things to do. You can't just buy it at a dollar and start living in there. You got to invest money. So when I say the dollar, it's fake there. You're probably gonna have to put 100, 150, 200,000 to put it up to par, and then you start paying taxes on that. And yes, you could rent it out. That's why if I go attack that, it's not going to be for one property. I'll probably go with a team and a team of. I like working with teams of 20, and my book explains why and everything. But you go with a team of 20, pick up a bunch of them, and renovate. I want to make Italy beautiful again, and and make some money out of this. So I don't know too much about Japan there, but Italy is something I've already started looking at, and I'll see in the future what we're gonna do with that. You know,
Very
and there's
interesting.
Airbnbs, right? You can convert these to many things. So many people want to go on vacation, and you put somebody over there in charge, and they'll take care of your properties, and they'll rent it out, and you know, this is what it is.
Yes. Airbnb is an interesting experience right now overall. The I've noticed that the price for the Airbnbs has skyrocketed. Has that happened in your area as well, Michael? Where you see like the price of Airbnbs have just gone up? It's probably a consequence of the pandemic.
Yeah, you know what? Airbnb depends also the location. If you're downtown, it's one thing. If you're on the outskirts, it's another. If you're in an area where there's a lot of tourists, it's another thing altogether. But compared to, is it really expensive? I don't think it's expensive. If you look at you compare it to a hotel. If you want to go to a nice hotel and it's going to cost you $300-400 a night to stay at a hotel, and I'm talking a hotel, not a motel, not a little, uh, $60 a night type of place where your face is on the wall when you're sleeping and mattress probably hasn't been changing for 30 years. So a nice hotel, you do the math. Airbnb, you got it's almost the same thing. And if you're renting a house, well, at least you got a yard. You can have some fun. In a hotel, you're limited to what you can do. So to promote and advertise, hey, you want to go to rent a house in Italy for a month, and it's going to cost you $5,000. It's nothing. Some people go in two families. It's peanuts compared to staying every night at a hotel.
Very true. Very true.
Mm.
One of the other things that I really enjoy about your book is you give people many different ways or access to real estate. It's not just a conventional, purchase with a conventional loan or purchase with an FHA, Federal Housing Authority loan. You gave a number of different ways to get access, right? Working with a group, doing
Hmm.
mortgage assumption, doing subletting, or own to lease to own options. I'd like
Yeah.
to explore with you the subletting piece because that one's a little bit unusual. And you talk a little bit about it. It's something that you hear about, these rent to owns, but then you
Hmm.
take it a step further with the idea of renting out the rent to own. So I'd love to hear more from you on that piece.
Well, rent to own is still fairly new. People have been doing it for the longest time, but people don't realize that they have that choice. So they'll blow 4 or 5 years of rent, and that's all down the drain. Where a lot of people that know about it will say, okay, you know what? They'll tell the landlord, I'm going to sign a 2, 3, 4, 5 year lease, whatever it is, but I want to have the option to buy the piece of property. So part of that rent that you've paid over these years kind of becomes your down payment towards the property. Okay, that's one way of you saving money. Because if you're going to keep it in the bank, a lot of people are not careful. In 5 years, they're going to be in the same position with nothing. So this way, they're forcing themselves to actually save money through that piece of property. Of course, there's always a risk to that. The owner could sell. Obviously, you got the first right of refusal, but if he decides to sell after a year, what are you gonna do if you're not ready, right? So there's that risk. So I tell people, don't just sign a lease. Get it, get a lawyer on there, get a notary, get it notarized, become a legal document that whoever, the future owner has to respect the same lease. And just protect yourself, because I've seen disasters with that. Not everybody's honest in the world, so there's that risk. And always, obviously, the other term to that word is when you've got a property rented and your tenant wants to leave and he's gonna sublease it to someone else, and I refuse. I mean, I totally refuse, because they have the right, but I refuse. I say, no, I want to go find my own tenant, because these guys are going to put just anybody in my apartment, and we don't know if it's criminals, we don't know what their background is, and then I'm stuck dealing with the headaches. Technically, it is the person I signed a lease with that is responsible, but what does he care? He's going to let it drag on, and then there's just going to be lawsuits, and it becomes a mess. So I tell people, if somebody wants to leave, don't fight it. The way I strike a deal, I say, listen, pay me an extra month or two, because I got to put ads out there. I got to be able to rent this place out, but I'll do it myself. So at least you got that extra month of rent, and if you're in a good area, they're gonna rent fast. But this is what it is. So you got options.
Very much so. The other unusual option that you mention in the book is mortgage assumption. And so that's one that I really don't hear about very often. And like, you think about this idea of almost like driving for dollars, driving around different neighborhoods and looking for houses that may look distressed, or hearing in your network about this. How do people, one, what is mortgage assumption? And how do you find these type of properties?
Well, I mean, the banks got the mortgages, so they obviously are the best vehicles for this. But I've because I'm already, financing people through a bank. I do. Not many there, but I have done some where a person has locked in a rate for. I'm going to use just any number, a 5-year fixed for 1.5%. Happens is, if they sell, some of them will sell with the mortgage. The existing mortgage buyer will want to assume that mortgage, because you're not going to get 1.5. The rates might be 2.5. So you want to assume a mortgage that's already in existence. So you transfer the mortgage over to the new buyer. But lately, where rates have dropped a lot, there's not many, right? Nobody's going to want to go get a 2.5% lease interest rate when they could go get a 1.8, 1.9. So, but it happens often more for big revenue properties, blocks of 10, 20, where the penalties for these owners are $50,000, $60,000, $40,000. It's just humongous. So they make a deal, say, you got to buy it, you got to buy also the mortgage that comes with it. So you got to assume that mortgage. It's mostly more for big revenue properties that stuff is common.
Good. So let me ask. I have one question from the audience. I want to get to that piece too, and then I want to dig into a different segment with you. But the question from the audience is this: what mortgage amount to rent is a good ratio or percentage? How do you know the investment or rental property will be profitable?
Well, again, it depends the area you're in, and you got to do your research. If you got to get a real estate broker involved to assess the property, that'll give you an idea. You look at the city valuation. You know, you gotta, it's got to be reasonable. You look at what homes have sold for in the area. You assess it on that. Now, percentage of the rent versus how much of it will be towards down payment. Is that what was that part one or part two of the question? Or?
Yes, it was what mortgage amount to rent is a good ratio.
Okay, so a percentage of the lease, I assume, right? That's
Yes.
basically up to, between you and your landlord. You know, obviously, the more you pay, the more you could put towards there. Obviously, a landlord, you're giving this, you know, this person money up front, and he could take this money and do other things. So, a place that's supposed to be rented at $1,000 a month, okay, example, and you're paying $1,005, then that $500 should be allocated and put aside, or landlord should put aside as a down payment towards the purchase of the house. Landlord, he's got this money where he could start putting, you know, he's got ahead of time, he could take this money, invest in another property. So it's a win-win, okay? For the tenant, he's saving and he's putting more towards the house. A landlord will take it and he's got that opportunity to reinvest it into another property. So the amount is really based on depending what the market rental value of this property is. You're not gonna say if it's $1,000, pay $2,000. The guy's giving you only $500 towards the house. No, because then you're actually losing. Might as well just pay $1,000 and put that extra $500 aside yourself. You know.
I think I think one of the things that this person's looking for is that 1% rule, the
Yeah.
total monthly rate. I think that's where you're
Oh,
going with this.
oh, how
Yes.
much should you rent it for? Well,
Yes.
depending also the area. Okay, the 1% rule is more in the bigger, you know, cities, you know, downtown, the bigger cities. You're not going to get that 1%. You know, certain places could be half a point. It could be, you know, 0.75. You know, but the 1% rule is ideally, but you're not gonna be able to find any outskirt at 1%. It doesn't matter what type of house you got. Now downtown, yes, they're gonna rent. Why? Because they're, you know, walking distance from work. They're walking distance from everywhere. So what they're saving on transportation and stuff, they could afford putting into the rent. So I've got properties which is half a point, you know, 3/4, 1% in the bigger areas. But with that 1% rule, property is also expensive too. So you know, you can't go and invest $2 million in a property and expect to pay, you know, somebody to pay 20,000 a month or whatever it is. There, you gotta be reasonable. But between half a point to 1% is where the bullseye is.
Okay. Makes sense. So within the book you mention as well the idea of, what you should look for in an ideal property, right? So like what
Mhm.
does the school system look like? What does the public transport look like? And there's a lengthy list that comes.
You can buy exactly. It's location, location, location. Now, obviously, myself and my circle, we like buying where, you know, there's universities, colleges, and why? It's because students usually, when, you know, if you got a 4.5, 5.5, they'll get two or three together, right? It's not a family. They're there to just hang out, study, eat, go to bed, go back to school. So it's always rented. It's always rented. Parents give you, you know, 12 post-dated checks. They wire you the money. There's never issues. Okay. Yes, kids are kids, but you set the ground rules. You know, they could go party somewhere else, not in their apartments. But they work. They work so well because you're always going to have these things rented, and you know, students leave, other students come in. So it's a whole circle, and they gain value fast in those areas. I got a friend within 5 years, he got to 70 doors because he goes, you know, he refinanced, took equity because the property was going up, and bought and bought and bought and bought. That now he reached to a point. He goes, I'm making 50,000 a month. I don't know what to do. Well, that's a good problem. That's a good problem. So don't complain. And he doesn't have them overly priced. He just wants them rented, and it makes sense for the area. Again, when you buy near a university and college, it doesn't have to be downtown, right? Not all university and college are downtown. They could be in the outskirts. They could be anywhere, and um, go go get your money. Don't always look for the uh, you know things where it's going to cost you more, and you can buy stuff that's affordable, and that's going to bring you passive income.
Very interesting. So that's a good one. We had another comment in the chat that said, I thought about renting out my first home, but I'm in the Midwest in a non-exciting city. It sounds like location is everywhere, everything.
Mm.
So yeah, so hopefully you are near a university or college and you can.
A lot of people prematurely sell without thinking. You know what? I tell people, if your house is almost paid for, or paid for completely. I got a case today, and like I told the client, I go, you just refinance your unit with that equity. You buy yourself a property. But I've always said, never kill the chicken, just feed off the eggs. So if you could pull equity and buy another property, the rent will pay that building off for you. You're technically, you're making somebody else pay your buildings, and so I like giving that option to people. I hate people when they sell. I like people when they buy. So if I could avoid them from selling and I could have them buy more doors, that's my first priority. Now, if they can't, and the revenue doesn't permit it, then we have no choice, right? We'll accommodate them. But before you your listener, before they sell, maybe it's an option is to refinance, take equity, and buy that other property.
Yes.
Yeah, and rent it
No,
out.
very, very good advice. Very good advice. And the other thing I want to talk to you about tonight as well is the team that you need to get this going. Because many times I feel like people are trying to jump into real estate, and they're either don't have any money, or they're trying to get to their 20%, and then they're in their own head about the cost of the real estate agent, the appraiser, the real estate lawyer, the inspector, right? How do you navigate that team when you're on a budget?
Well, my first few properties, I wasted money because, like I said, we started was my brother and I. We put what we did, and we had to keep some money aside because we had to renovate. It's not just the down payment and so forth. So, but at a certain point when we started building enough equity, obviously the best way of doing flips. Not so much. If you're gonna buy a property to keep it, that's okay. But to do flips, uh, you've got to buy it flat out cash. And when I built my team of 20 people, and not everybody had money, but some people had skill. You got, I got an electrician involved, plumber involved. These are guys, general contractors. These are guys that might not have the cash, but they had a vehicle that could have helped the team. And at the end, we figured out, we're not gonna get paid, but if your work would have cost you $20,000, well, there's your contribution to the pot. So I've created teams where we were 20 guys. We put 50,000 each. It's $1 million. Against $1 million, I got another 2-3 million in equity, and with this, you started getting into bigger projects and stuff like that. But you can do it with $5,000. Imagine 20 people, 5,000. You've got 100,000 of equity. Again, it depends the type of property. And I don't find teams you don't get a team just to get a team. You want to get some guys that could also bring something to the table. Like I said, it could be a notary. I've had notaries. I've had lawyers, depending where you are. Some places notaries, some places lawyers, accountants. These are people that could actually, they might not know how to hold a hammer, but they could help with, with the transaction and everything else. So lawyers tend to be expensive too when you do a transaction. An accountant to prepare the buying and selling. If you got a capital gains to pay, if you got to prepare all that stuff. My groups, most of them could bring something, and some people they just have the money and they know nothing else, that's great. You got money and you put it in, you walk away, and usually I don't know why, for whatever reason, I'm always the one stuck managing everything, but I guess they trust me, but it is what it is. So yeah, the group power thing is to save money, because if you could avoid banks, you could avoid the you save on interest, you save on other fees, and stuff like that. You buy it cash, but not everybody is at that position, and unless you create a group and you put a couple of bucks each in the pot. But then the fear with that is people say, yeah, but what if they walk away with our money? Well, that there's that risk, and you got to find that right person um, that you can trust, and you can tell right away who could be trusted or not. That's why. And if nobody could be trusted, then you're going to put it in trust with a lawyer or notary or an accountant, and they manage it. There's ways around it. I've had real estate brokers as partners, and some of them they're pretty good at what they're doing, and they're very successful. They're not gonna go take your $5,000. They don't need to. So that's the other thing. Don't give your money to somebody who's working at McDonald's, because it comes with a risk.
Mhm. Yeah, this team sounds really powerful though, and it's true. $100,000 each, $50,000 each, 20 people, all of a sudden you have $1 million. You can do giant deals. And I love that it's not just, you know, oh, they don't have the money, but what can they do? What can they contribute in different ways? I think that's really powerful. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. I got friends. They started actually this thing with 20. It works because I had friends that are multi-millionaires, 60, 70, $90 million worth. And when you ask them the question, how'd you get to this? And they all have pretty much the same answer. We started as a group. We started as a group. Guys approached us. We gave us an opportunity to put our money in there until they were worth what we're worth. And they own hotels now. They own, not just revenue projects. They got hotels. They've got tons and tons of buildings, and money makes money. But again, the common denominator is that they all started as a group. Uh, you're limited as one person. What am I going to do with 20,000? Nothing. Okay, but as a group and everybody puts in 20, all of a sudden you got a lot of money and you can make a roll. So it's powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, that is, let me just check our Facebook group and see if there are any questions over there. I think.
Nobody's got any debt questions. I had a lot of people saying, how do I get out of debt so I can start investing? No?
Well, apparently that's not where their mind is now. They're just like, let's go find our 20.
No, but exactly, go find a 20. But thing is, a lot of people say, yeah, but I'm in debt. How am I going to get to 20? You know what? There's ways of getting out of debt too. And I wrote one book called actually Getting Out of Debt, which teaches people how to, because you got to build on a solid foundation. If you're under that foundation, it's going to be a little tougher, but you can get out of debt. You can correct your credit bureau and fix it pretty fast. Fast, just not to get, spend too much time on how to get out of debt. I always tell people, never pass 60% of your limit. So if you got a credit card of $2,000, never pass, 60%, $1,200, keep it at that. Because the system, what it is, every month it goes and looks, is, oh, okay, this person doesn't have to live with borrowed money, and the score stays healthy or increases. But the ones that are maxed and you keep on paying that $20, the minimum, you're not going to go nowhere. So the secret is never pass 60% of the limit.
Good. I think that is very wise advice.
Yeah.
And yes, there's something that you mention within the book too, about debt. You talk about it a little bit, and that is the different types of debt, right? So your consumer debt is very different from debt that you may have through real estate, right? So like the idea of carrying credit card or personal loan or auto loans is very different than having a few mortgages, home equities, or HELOCs out there
Hmm.
for the purposes of real estate. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because I
Sure.
think
I
that's a
mean,
good thing for people to get their head wrapped around.
and my parents and all the older crowd, they believed that mortgage debts were debts. They wanted to pay off their house as fast as possible, and they say, I don't want to have debts. And that was wrong. Nobody was there to teach them. A mortgage is a healthy debt because you got an asset that comes with it. Credit cards, personal line of credits, um, you know, car loans. Well, you need a vehicle if you gotta, it's gonna generate you money because you gotta go to work, you gotta go back home, you gotta bring your kids here, you gotta bring kids there. So I hate car loans, but at the same time, it's neutral. But credit cards, personal line of credits, those will kill you. Those are real debts. Mortgages are healthy debts because you've got an asset attached to it. So the more mortgages you have, the more money on the long run you're going to be making. So it's okay. If you got 10 million in debt on mortgage debts, it means you probably got 15, 20 million of real estate. So that's a different type of debt. So a lot of people, they think a mortgage is a bad debt. It's not. It is not. And just avoid credit cards, avoid personal line of credits. Those are the ones that really destroy your credit line. Not because you have 5 million in mortgages that it's going to hurt your credit bureau. Sorry, I missed a credit line, but your credit bureau. It's not your mortgages. Of course, your mortgages are going to carry a weight on your score, but it's not going to weaken your score. Okay, and a car payment doesn't increase your score either, because a car payment, when there's a fixed payment, the system says, well, he has no choice to pay this. We can't tell if he's responsible or not, right? The only way a system can tell if you're responsible or not is with personal line of credits, credit cards, because these are things you have control over. Of course, you miss a mortgage payment, you miss a car payment, it's going to destroy your credit. But the system can tell if you're responsible basically on credits that you completely have control of. So be careful of those credit cards and the personal line of credits.
Good advice. Michael, is there a point within you building your real estate empire, and not you particularly, but I mean for the audience, is there a point for someone that's looking to do this where you say, you know what, you're too far, you've leveraged too much? If they follow the formula, is that sufficient, or is there a point where they need to just take a step back and say, like, it's time to slow down?
It's really up to them. If they're getting tired, there's always companies out there that could manage their properties for them, or hand it over. If you reach that point, just hand it over to your kids. Hand over the torch to your kids. Let them carry over because they're young. They got energy. Just shadow them while you're still around. Even though that you hand them the torch, you still want to be involved until a certain extent. You gotta shadow them and teach them, and and if they make a boo boo, you're there to put to fix it and tell them why this is good and why that's not good. Because if you pass and they just take your estate, well, they never really learned anything, right? So get them involved. If you're getting tired, don't get rid of anything. Pass it on. Let them take over and help them out, and they got energy to go buy more and build and build and build. 90% of millionaires in the world, it's through real estate, eh? This nothing else. I mean, real estate has given people millions of dollars, and that's what made them pursue their acting career, many other things. But 90% of the millionaires is through real estate. So just don't give it away. Just pass it on. Let the family grow on that, and that's it.
Fantastic. So, Michael, before we close out our conversation today, is there any closing notes or closing thoughts that you want to leave the audience with as they're here? We had a few questions. You did a great job going through them, and the audience is thankful. I'm sure he'll go back and read the notes afterwards. But what closing thoughts do you have for the audience?
Go out there and buy a property. That is, I love it. I just it excites me when I see people buy. That is your retirement. Don't wait after a pension from work. Don't wait after a pension from the government. It's not worth it. You got to build your own wealth, your own pension, and some people they're rich and that's all they are, but they're not necessarily wealthy. Just make it, go. Don't be afraid. I remember my first property. I was shaking, and if I could go back then, I would have bought the whole street that day. Don't be afraid. Once you throw yourself in that water, you're gonna learn how to swim, and you'll be fine.
Good. Amazing. So with that being said, for everyone watching, thank you so much for tuning in today. This was Michael Stephen, our special guest, best-selling author. You can find his books on Amazon. He is on Audible. His website will be linked below for you. What is the website, Michael?
All the websites go to the same place, but I use vagpublishing.com, or the bestselling. Oh, it shows I got too many. The bestsellerbooks.com, and realestateinvestments.com. But go to vagpublishing.com. That will bring you to the link with all the 6 books. The 7, like I said, will come out shortly. And as a matter of fact, you know what? For my 7th book, I've got a review team in place. So if anybody is interested in getting an advanced copy of my book, send us email RK or DM me. You'll see through my website. You'll get my email address. Anybody who enjoys real estate, I don't want to give out free books just to anybody. I want people that are serious about getting into the real estate world. I want to invest. I want to learn. Will be my pleasure to give you an advanced copy of my books.
Amazing. Amazing. And there's more to come. This next one publishing.
And free is good, right? Free is good. Everybody likes free.
Absolutely. But you have to apply the knowledge. You can't just get the book and read it and think about it. You have to put it into action. You have to create a plan to put it into action and then do it. Jump into the water, as Michael said.
Exactly.
So with that being said, again, you can find his books on Amazon. You can download them on Audible and actually listen to them in your own time while you're running around the house or going for your run. You can do it all from there. So with that being said, I hope you all had an amazing night. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and you took a ton away from it. When you buy your first property, I can't wait to celebrate it with you. Michael, thank you.
Thank you.
Have an amazing night, guys. Bye.
Already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions, we'll get away. This is what we waited for.